Okay, so in last lecture, we have discussed, enough about the Dalit discourse. We have discussed the autobiographical accounts. Then yesterday we also talked about one drama, right, by Datta Bhagat, Roots and Escape Routes. And then we discussed very two points stories of, poisoned bread and storied house, right? That gives us enough idea about the why Dalits they devise their new aesthetics, why they devise their new subjectivities, and they are asking for the reconstruction and revolution, right, in order to demand social justice and have equality and the idea of freedom in the democratic country like India, right? So today we are going to discuss the tribals, right, the history culture of tribals, and we will discuss one play, that is Budan. And today, first of all, let's start with the tribals, right? Let's first, we'll talk about who are the tribals, why we gave this term to tribals, how we can differentiate between tribals and the other citizens. But before starting, I would like to have your two, three words for the tribals. Shishmita, what do you think? Who are tribals? How do you perceive tribals, right? If I ask for two or three words, how do you see tribals?
Ma'am, generally, when we heard the term because of the influence of the movies or the cinema, the tribals would look like the people who live in forests, who doesn't wear, proper clothes, who uses leaves or some or the natural things, natural ingredients as clothes.
Okay, and anything else?
Uh,
You just thought that it was just a mere of fantasy, or you really think that such kind of reality still exists in a technology ridden world where something is available at every click and these people are there.
Ma'am, these I believe that these kinds of peoples are still there.
Okay, okay. So first of all, let's start with the you could say the very basic things that we used to donate, tribals, right? As Sushmita, you have already mentioned that whenever we think of tribals, there came a picture of a half-naked man, clad in just in leaves. They are having this face paint on their mouth, black paint on their mouth, and sometimes they roam around with the sticks in the hand. They have grotesque figure, completely different figures from what we call the completely different figures from the civilized world. So their world is totally different from our civilized world. What we talk about the civilization, what we talk about the sophistication, the polished society, we were talking about the refined society. So this is the reason that usually from last centuries the tribals are termed to be primitive, right? Primitive, ethical, not evolved. These people, we used to say that these people are not evolved, ये पिछड़े हुए लोग हैं, right? They are, even sometimes they are termed to be the savages, right? Savages, adivasis. And sometimes we used to call them that they are, they do not belong to us, right? So they are much 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 lower level of us. As I have already told you that we don't consider them that they belong to the civilized society, right? We believe that they are not part of our civilized society, and they are they are unsophisticated people, they are uncivilized people, they are just uncivilized people, they are just lurking in the forest, they are the brutes, the uncivilized brutes. So such is the harsh reality we used to associate with them, right? And before starting my lecture, I would like to add that there is actually a tribe, right? Sentinelese tribe in the Andaman Nicobar, in the North Andaman. So there is a Sentinelese tribe. You could even watch that few videos on the YouTube, that they have they vigorously rejected all kind of contact with the humans. On the other hand, there are a lot of tribes, you can see that all over the world, that whenever the humans, we so called, we educated and civilized humans, we went to meet them, they wholeheartedly welcomed us, and they want us to have a peak over their world. So look at, such is kind of a reality that people are going to tribal villages, and the tribal areas and meeting the tribal communities. But on the other hand, there is this tribe Sentinelese, right? They are living in the Sentinelese island of the north of the Andaman, and they rigorously rejected all kind of a contact with the human, right? Even there are some cases that whenever a human or a reporter or a team, they approached them, they simply attacked them, right? So they are said to be the ferocious, you could say ferocious, violent tribe. But on the other hand, when we think about it, and when we think about invading their land, when we think about invading their rights, when we actually think that what made us, okay, sorry, what made them to feel like that we don't belong to them, and we are not like a part of them. So it is a definitely a justified approach from them, that they literally attack the team, the members, or even the journalist, and they completely rejected any kind of a communication with the human world, right? So this was the reason that so only there are few drone shots, or from that time there are few shots that are taken from the far off sites, and this is the reason we got to know. But on the other hand, it is from a far off place, you can see that they are actually living in a very in a very utopian world. They are living very closer to nature, and they are enjoying their life, and they don't want technology, communication, and any kind of sophisticated, you could say, a convenient world, right? So what we are going to think about it, so today we will discuss about the tribals, that what is actually their ethnicity, where do they come from, what is actually their life, their their history, their social and cultural life. And definitely we will talk about the tribal discourse. And yesterday when we had a good discussion over the Mahashweta Devi, and Mahashweta Devi is a great name when we are talking about the emancipation of the tribals, right? So here too we will be talk about the emancipation of the tribals. But before even talking about the emancipation of the tribals, and what we are talking about the STs, that is scheduled tribes, where this term came from, right? So what was the earlier term, and what was the actual existence of the tribals in the Indian society, right? So first of all, we'll talk about the tribals. As I have already told you, that there are the few names like the Adivasis. They were termed to be savages, brutes, the primitive. So these are such kind of kind of images, or such kind of words, as we have already discussed, that an unrefined man and a savage, right, that comes to our mind, that we really feel afraid of. At the first sight, we don't want to just go and shake our hand, we don't want to just go and simply hug that person. At the first sight we feel afraid. But what is the reason, right? What is the reason of our fear? Why we feel afraid when we talk about, when we even think about them, and when we think of approaching them, right? So it is all about the image construction, right? That how tribals are, how the image of the tribals are constructed in such a way that we feel terrified, we really feel afraid of the same human beings. But on the other hand, we feel that they are like some demons, they are like some asurs, they are like some rakshas that who will gobble us up. On the other hand, there are few tribes as well. If you read about the geographical different geographical areas, then there are few tribes who are even cannibals, right, who eat human flesh. So there are, so this is, though what I'm talking about is all about the image construction, that the image of the tribals that was actually embedded in the minds of the sophisticated human beings in the civilized society. So their society, what we termed as the uncivilized society. So what is the actually the characteristics of uncivilized society, and what are the factors, right, that pushed in the making of a uncivilized society, right? So when we are talking about the history of the tribals, right, so the any kind of a the image from where they where they come from, and what is the actually originator, why they are living in the forest, and why they are denying communication, why they are denying technology, why they are not going fast forward and advanced with our world, right? But on the other hand, if you feel that, so there will from the historical context, you will feel that there are very less traces of their identities, right? When we read about, same goes with the Dalits, we have already discussed the same discourse about the invisibility. The same thing you feel in the scheduled tribes as well, right? So there is definitely the invisibility was definitely there, right? So the historical narratives, if you if you pick up any historical narrative, you will not see much of the Dalits, and you will not see the much of the tribal, you could say, warriors and tribal kings, or we'll see the history of a tribal, the tribal heroes, right? The reason behind that the Indian history, basically because we were living in the Hindu society, so the Hindu society was kind of obsessed with the idea of kings and queens, right? So they will be definitely talking about kings and queens, their warriors, right? The Aryan warriors, right? So they used to glorify their own history in order to make in order to assert their authority and power over the people, so that generations will come, and more generations will cherish them. They will know their name, and they want to get, they want to get popularity. But on the other hand, there are few terraces on the other hand, because of the new approach of new historicism. Have you read or have you heard the new historicism? Have you heard about new historicism, Shishmita?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So, right, so because of the new historicism, so personal anecdotes, there are few incidents, there are few, there are new things that could, cropping up from the minors, from the subalterns. So there we got to know the different point of views, right? That we have even discussed, we were discussing about the Karan as well from the Mahabharata, right? That how his autobiography or how his point of view will definitely give a new dimension to the Mahabharata. So here as well, so when we are talking about the tribal discourses, so you will not find much from the point of view of history, because history doesn't pay much attention to tribals, and they don't want to glorify tribals. They really want to glorify their own kings and queens, and their own warriors. So what happened is, but on the other hand, there are few traces, as I have already told you, there are few characters, and they were already they are already uh, you could say portrayed as to be the very minor characters. For example, I would just like to give you two examples. So first is from the Ramayana, that is of the Shabri woman. Must have heard of Shabri from Ramayana,
Yes, ma'am.
right? So she was
Yes,
actually a tribal woman, right? So
yes, ma'am.
on going to his quest, right, to find Sita, right, Lord Rama, the King Rama was actually met with the woman, that is Shabri, and Shabri was actually a tribal woman, right? And so the whole discourse between Shabri and King Rama, you could say that how Shabri is treated to be the lowest, right, the lowest in the hierarchy, and how she was actually waiting for the salvation, and how she was waiting for the salvation, and that to be salvation at the hands of the superior, right, the superior, the divine, the King Rama, the Lord Rama, right? So you could see the connection between Lord Rama and the Shabri, that how the hierarchy was very much prevalent there, right? The hierarchy was very much visible there, right? Because Shabri belongs to the lowest of the lowest, right? She was actually a tribal woman that is residing in the forest. And on the other hand, there is one more example that I would like to quote, that is Eklavya from the Mahabharata. You must have
Yes,
heard of Eklavya as well,
yes,
right? So
yes, ma'am.
a very common incident that was that his thumb was demanded by Guru Dronacharya. So
Yes,
the act itself, that depicts the hierarchy between the Guru Shishya, and on the other hand, it is totally it cast a lot of light on the power dynamics of the different caste, how he really wanted his kids, or you could say how he really wanted his people to flourish and thrive. But on the other hand, and Eklavya was actually Eklavya was not got justice at that time. So there are few things that I have already mentioned you, that whenever there was the tribal discourse, and whenever historical discourses are trying to portray tribals, they always portray tribals on the in the their minor existence, right? And always they are on the peripheries. They never took the forefront. They never took the center stage, and they are already, they were already damned on in some or other way. For example, Shabri was actually waiting for the salvation at the hand of a king, and on the other hand, same goes with Eklavya. Eklavya, people used to portray that Eklavya got his his thumb cut just because of his guru, just because of his teacher. That was definitely not a right act, right? According to. from the point of view of a guru as well, right? I really don't want my any of my student to do such kind of a, to give such kind of a diksha to me, right? No matter what, how much loved or loved that pupil would be, and or I love that person, or how much respect I want that. But this is the last thing that you really want from your, you could say, from your disciple. So same, the you could say, you could see the the power dynamics between these two people. So that was quite obvious. So such are the narratives, that there are few references of the tribals, right? So few references of the tribals will be found here and there in the mythology, in the historical discounts, right, and in the discourses. So then we were talking about, from the historical discourses, then comes the historical or mythological discourses, then come the Mughals as well, right? On the other hand, when we were talking about the Mughals, so it is said to be that they haven't paid any attention to the emancipation of the tribals, and they are also, Mughals are also the one that they pushed tribals to the more and more peripheries, and then comes, and same goes with the colonial powers. So colonial structure, and when we talk about the Mughal structure, so they were same in the dealing with the tribals, right? So they both were same in the dealing, and they pushed them to the peripheries. And as we have already discussed in the lecture, that how SCs and SVs were, termed as criminals, right? That we were going to study in the Budan, right? So the same things that during the colonial period, so they will be given the tribal analyst, right? So they will be somewhere, people believe that the colonial, you could say, the colonial masters, the Britishers, the white masters, for a white who is polished, who pretends himself to be, or who professes himself to be, a fine gentleman. They have the vocabulary of, a gentleman, and they professes themselves to be, fine gentlemen, right? All clad in the dress, and from them, the point, the sight of a man, a half naked man, is definitely, they are the ones. So colonial structure is the one that actually highlighted, the nakedness in the tribals, and on the other hand, that pushed them to the peripheries. And colonial masters are the one, they actually, you could say, termed the you could say, the tribals as the criminals, right? We have already discussed the point, that how they, chalked few tribes as the criminal tribes, right? So the tribes who were actually, doing nothing, and so this was the reason. And they are also the one who gave the, even the term of hill and forest tribes, right? So these are the people who were actually, living in the forest, right? So you could say living in the forest. So this was the reason. So this is that they are also, talking about the hill and forest tribes. And on the other hand, when we were talking about the tribals, so there is a very worth mentioning name that we will be talking about, when we are talking about Dalits. So the name of Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, keeps coming again and again with great reverence and respect. So same goes with, here we have a Birsa Munda. Have you heard of this name?
Yes, ma'am.
Right? So Birsa Munda is also a tribal man, right? So he actually, and he contributed a lot, even in the India's freedom and the tribal emancipation as well, right? So
Yes.
when the colonial masters, when they came to tame these tribals, right? So he was the one who actually, he collected the army, and he fought with the Britishers, and he's the one who defied the rule of the Britishers, right? But on the other hand, there are our princely states. There are a lot of our kings and princes who happily gave the share of, his state, who happily gave the share of his army, who happily gave the share of the India to Britishers, on the name of, getting a pension, on the name of getting a few things from the Britishers. But on the other hand, these tribals, they love their land so much, that they, so Birsa Munda is also one of them, that he has the utmost dedication towards the, the land. And this is the reason, and this is the reason that he actually emerged as a visionary hero, for the, in the whole construction of India's freedom, and even for the, you could say, tribals emancipation. And when we were talking about, the same thing, right, that why Birsa Munda raised his voice against the you could say, the Britishers, because they feel that the land the land is actually their motherland, right? And this is actually the land to whom they belong, right? So there are, they used to term this land as dharti mata, right? And so this was the reason, that they have immense love for the nature, they have the immense love for the land, right? So their love is, you could say, their love and their respect can be totally contrasted, with the love of the, you could say, the upper caste, because for them land is definitely a a tool to assert his power. But on the other hand, for them, land is definitely what they respect and what they love. So there is definitely a difference between loving something and controlling something, right? The idea of possession and the idea of upholding, right? So the tribals are the one who are actually upholding the land with respect, love, and care. But on the other hand, the invaders, any kind of invaders, they really want to assert their control over the land. They really want to control the land, right? And when we were talking about the, we have talked enough about the, the historical structure, and we were talking about their, from where they come from, right? So there, you could say, as we have already discussed, that there was no historical, historical accounts mentioned, right? Because first of all, they were, you could say, they were the uneducated people. They were the, they were the, they were completely primitive, right? So they are not familiar with the writing, right? So the tradition of the writing was far far away. Still there are a lot of tribes, as I have, we have already discussed about the Sentinels, right? So there are few tribes that where there is no tradition of the written art, right? So the definitely, the more art, culture, and history, the more art, culture, and history was truly embedded in the oral narratives, right? So even you have a full-fledged, you could say, a whole module over the oral narratives. So oral narratives, so they believe in the legends, in the ballads, in the songs, and the stories, right? The kathais, the folk tales, right? So these are their ultimate heritage, right? So we don't get any written account, about them, but we got to know about their history, and we got to know about their relation with the land. We got to know about their lives, that too by their folk tales, that too by their ballads, their legends, right? So this is how we, we form an understanding about it. And when we talk about one of the, you could say, the
Ma'am,
folk tales, right? Yes, Sushmita.
ma'am, are folk tales just linked to the these tribes, or folk tale term can be used for any kind of society? Any
Folk tales can be applied to any kind of a society, Shmita. Folk tales are not just limited to the tribals, right? Folk tales are the ultimate, you could say, it is the ultimate record keeping, right? When there was no written tradition, right? We don't have printing press that time, right? The printing press came in the 1400, right? When we start
so
writing
it's
and
the
recording.
folk tale is kind of oral narrative.
Yes, it is actually a kind of oral narratives. It is a kind of oral discourses, right? For example, let me give you a very basic example, right? For example, when you were a child, your parents used to, they used to, to teach you something, right? So they give you the example of a tale, right? Whenever we,
Yes.
used to teach children about
Yes.
not to do this and not to do that, then we used to give them a story of a greedy dog, that how greed is be the ultimate end of all the things, right? So
Yes.
these things, these stories, these songs, these arts, the paintings, these structures, these sculptures, so such kind of a things, everything, right? The folk art, right? Whether it is going to be the songs, ballads, legends, so these are the ultimate reflection of the history, right? The generations learn from them, and because it is oral, right? Because of the oral, it will
Yes.
pass from one generation to another
Yes.
automatically, right?
Yes.
So you must have heard of, Carl Gustav's Jung, right? The collective unconsciousness, when you were studying the psychoanalysis, right? You must have studied psychoanalysis, and there
Yes.
you must have heard of Carl Gustav Jung's collective unconsciousness, that how,
Yes.
even before, even before our birth, right? So there was a collective consciousness going on in the man. So he said that even there is a baby who is just 1 month, 1 month born, or 15 days born. He knows that which thing he should be fearful of and which thing he loves the most, right? The basic instinct were very much there. So the basic instinct, the natural instinct, is what we got from these kind of the folk art, right? So this is very much a part of the narrative, the collective unconsciousness.
Yes.
So folk tales are the ultimate reflection. So we got to know about their culture, their lives, their festivals, their their way of living, from their folk tales, from their folk tales, folk songs. And you already have a whole narrative about the folk tales, right? So I'm just going to give you a brief idea about the folk tales, right? When we discuss the central folk tales, right? So in order to, we discussed about, there are a lot of biblical stories as well. Even whatever you read, right? You read Quran, you read Islam, Quran, or even you read Bible. We have the stories, right? The stories about the origin of the man and woman, right? So there are stories. So these stories are ultimately a form of the, you could say, these kind, and these stories will be ultimately transformed into the ballads, into the songs, and it will pass on from generation to generation, right? So here is also one kind of a story. It has a close connotation when we are talking about the tribals, right? So according to the tribal folk tales, what is the origin of the man and woman, right? How man and woman, and you could say a man and woman comes to the life, right? And basically it is, when we talk about the human, right? Human in the natural form. So it is the tribals, right? When we talk about the tribals, so they are the humans in the natural form, right? Who are actually living close to the nature, who are actually living in the forest, right? And they are actually, they are getting their lifeline from the forest, right? And their life depends upon the forest, right? So the same way, when we are talking about the first man and woman, so according to the tribal art, tribal folk tales, so oral narratives, so there we have the construction of god, they have the construction of thakur dio, right? Or it can be thakur geo as well, right? So he used to connote somebody, a supreme being, a supernatural being, a supreme being like our god, right? So they don't said that, and they do not even worship that thakur geo or thakur dio. It was just a story about the origin, that how man and woman come to existence. So it was just a story about that there is a supreme being. So it was a story that there is a supreme being, that thakur dio was actually creating the whole universe, right? And he
Thakur
created
Dio.
Thakur Dio, right? The Thakur, the concept of, as we have, there are different connotations. As for example, people used to refer the god Thakurji. So the same thing, right?
Yes.
So even you could say that this construction comes from the tribal art only, right? The
Okay.
construction of Thakurji, what people used to say that it is the ultimate truth. It is not the ultimate truth. It was actually a, you could say, a discourse taken from somewhere else, right? So it was the Thakur Dio, right? So Thakur Dio was the ultimate, you could say, the ultimate creator of the universe. He is the supreme being. He has the ultimate power, and he is creating everything. He created oceans. He created land, like the same story of the big story of the God. That how he created everything. He created everything in the 6 days. As he rested on the seventh, this is how we got Sunday, right? And on the other hand, same goes with the Thakur Dio. So Thakur Dio also was creating everything, and then he created two birds, right? So he created two birds, and then he want to create two humans, right? But it was a story that there came a horse, that Thakur Dio was actually, he was making two humans from the mud, right? So this was the reason that when we are talking about humans, so we will definitely be talking about the five elements, right? That how five elements, right? The jal, hava, agni,
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
right?
ma'am.
So these all are the five things that we, how the man and woman, they are made of, right? Even we talk about dharti and asman, that हाँ, धरती में ऐसे आए हैं, and हवा, आकाश में मिल जाना. So these are the five elements when we talk about the, the existence of the man, right? So it is said
Yes,
to
ma'am.
be said that Thakur Dio created the, two shapes that are from the mud, and he was thinking of putting spirit into it, and he was thinking of creating a human being. But then it is said to be that then came a horse and he crashed the whole thing, right? So the horse came and he spoiled the things, right? He spoiled the too much things. And Thakur Deo was very much disappointed. He was very much unhappy that he really want to create a good creation, right? He really want to create a very good creation. But then it is said to be that the very two birds, right, that he liked the most, the two birds that he created, then he converted these two birds into the humans, right? So that is Hihivi and Pipivi. That we have the construction of Adam and Eve in the Christianity, Adam and Eve in the Bible. So the same way we have the construction of Hihivi and Pipivi, right? So there are two birds who got transformed into the man and woman, right? So even this construction can have a symbolical purpose, that how we used to say that the man is just there, to serve his duty, and ultimately his soul will fly, right? That how the soul is connoting to the bird, right? I hope you're
Yes,
getting my
ma'am.
point, right? So the
Yes,
same
ma'am.
way, right? So the soul is, termed to be the ultimate, the spirit that flies off and will become one with the sky. Where lives the, Thakur Dio, right? Or where lives the Mahapuru, right? So they don't have the construction of any kind of a god, right? So they don't have any god. Wherever you read about their folktales, they don't have the construction of any god. They don't believe in any god, right? They don't believe in any deity even, right? So like we have the different kind of a deities, like we have the different kind of, like we have khuda, like we have god, like they don't have such kind of a construction, right? Basically they were the pagans, right? So we'll talk about gradually when we are talking about them about the paganism. So this was the Hihiri and Pipiri. So Hihiri and Pipiri, so they were living in the paradise, right? So it was all about that they were living in the paradise. So there was a garden of Eden, the same structure that they were living. So it can be look at it. So it can be a connotation that all the stories, right, which said that they are the ultimate truth, it got inspired from these oral stories only, right? When you talk about North of Fire, he has written a great book on the morphology of the folktales, and he explained that all the folktales they have the same construction,
Yes, ma'am.
right? He was talking about in the
Yes.
morphology of the folk tales, right? So he was talking about that all the folk tales they have one hero, one god, one creation. So even he had the 32 same narrative structures as well, right? He mentioned
Ma'am,
32
who wrote
structures.
this? Who wrote this morphology?
That is North of Fire. He was a great, you could say, he was a person who was actually dealing in the
Okay,
mythological
notes of
criticism,
fire. Okay, okay, okay,
right?
ma'am.
Not through fire. He was actually from the archetypal criticism,
Yes, ma'am.
mythology and
Yes, ma'am.
archetypism, right? So he has actually talking about the 32 narrative structures as well, right? So he said that he from the different from the all the folk tales, whether we are talking about the European, Asian, South African. So he was talking about all the folk tales. He was saying we have a definite common structure, common narratives, right? So how it keeps on harping the point that we all are one, right? Our culture, our heritage, our existence is one. It is just about the man who created the boundaries, right, and who created these barriers, right, just to assert his power and control over the others, right? And on the other hand, when we talk about our origin, when we talk about our existence, we back to the same point that how there is a creator who created this one, and this is how life originated, and we all are same, and this is what the story is, right? And then we have the Hihiri and Pipiri. So they were living in the Garden of Paradise, right? So like a garden, right? So they were living a happy life. But Thakur Diyo, so it was said that so they were living, they were enjoying a celibate kind of a relationship, right? So they were actually enjoying the things. But on the other hand, it is mentioned in the story that it was Thakur Diyo, right, who actually made something. From the liquor, right, from a liquor and from the alcohol, you could say that, right? And he made something, he made something like the liquor, and he made them drink so that these people will have a close contact, have a physical intercourse, and then they will they will procreate, they will have more and more children on the earth, right? So on the other hand, you can see a clear contrast between Christianity and these stories, right? The terrible narratives. So what we read in the Christianity, that how Adam and Eve are, they are cursed to live on the earth, right? When we were talking about that they are here to to do the hard work. This is how man is destined to do everything by the hard work, and in the end he will get the product of his hard work, right? So there is a clear and sharp contrast between these two stories. But on the other hand, these stories, they do not they do not portray the construction of man and woman as as some curse is fell upon it. On the other hand, they are happily indulging in it. For example, there is a supreme being who really wants them to procreate, right? And to procreate more and more and make this world beautiful, right? So this is how people say that the more and more human beings, the tribals believe that, or you could say in the folk tales we got to know that how the humans came into the existence by Hihiri and Pipiri, right? And after the close intimacy, right, so they got to they make aware themselves about the bodily pleasures, about their bodily structures. The same way you could the same thing that you can connote with the adolescent guys, right? Adolescent children, and when they hit puberty, right? And when they hit puberty, they themselves got aware of their body, about their bodily structure. They become aware about their hormonal changes, and then they're prone to procreate, they're prone to indulge in such kind of acts. So it is not termed to be something as as something a demonic act. So it is, on the other hand, in these folk tales, it is portrayed to be something very natural for the you could say the evolution of the humankind, right? I hope this much is clear. I hope this much is clear, Shushmita.
Yes, ma'am.
right? So we
Yes.
have discussed about the a folk tale, right? The origin of the, you could say, the tribals, right? So let's move to the, you know, the family structure. We'll talk about the, you know, the festivals and everything. So this is the ultimate story, right? So the same thing, right? I just discussed a central story. On the other hand, there are different, you know, the narrative on the things will be same, but there will be few stories, right? If you go to Manipur, there, you know, their folk tales are different. If you go to Andhra, their folk tales are different, right? So there will be just different, you know, there will be just few little bit difference between the narrative structure, between the names, between the, but otherwise the core message and element is the same. And when we were talk about the tribals, right? So basically there are few, still there are a lot of tribes in the India. So basically these are the Gonds, Bhils, Santals, Orains, and Meenas as well, right? So on the other hand, Meenas are even very common, you know, a common surname that we got, right? So they are largely populated in the Rajasthan, right? So Meenas are there, right, in the Rajasthan. So these tribes can be found in Jharkhand, even definitely, you know, in the hilly and especially in the forest areas, right? Because they are living in the forests, right? So they are living in the forest. And, you know, earlier times, right? So they were found in the Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, MP, Odisha, Bihar, right? And they are also there in the Maharashtra, Gujarat, Andhra Pradesh, West Bengal, and as we have already told about, right, in the islands of Andaman and Nicobar, right? So these are the areas where we can find the tribes, right? The tribal people, which we used to, you know, termed it as scheduled tribes. And when we talk about, you know, their family structure, right? So their family structure was, you know, they were living in a very, they don't have such kind of a, you know, patriarchy and matriarchy, right? They don't have such kind of a construction that there will be just a patriarchal rule, right? When we talk about the Hindu, so, in Indian society, specifically the Hindu society, we will be definitely talking about the patriarchal society, that how and Hindu family will be ruled by a patriarch. But on the other hand, if you study the tribes, you will say that there are few tribes there, they have no such kind of a dimensions. But on the other hand, there are few where patriarchy is performed, and on the other hand, there are few where matriarchy is performed, right? So they are totally different from what we have in our world, right? So it they their tribal structure, their family structure, it just depends upon the well-being of their society and the well-being of their community, right? So even there are tribes that their women are more powerful, right? So their women are, they are more powerful. They are asserting more power over the men, right? So they are the person who are actually, you know, doing, making the decisions in the society, and even in their tribes, right? So their family structure is totally different from what we have from the Hindu patriarch society, right? So there are few tribes that are even matriarch as well, right? They are ridden by the mother, right? So the women are the ultimate deciding factors there, right? So they are ruling the communities, right? And when we were talking about, they also have their festivals, they also have their arts, they also have their crafts, right? Have you watched the movie Kantara, a legend, by Rishabh Shetty, Shushmita?
No, ma'am, I have not watched it still.
Okay, and have you watched Jai Bhim?
Which one?
Jai Bhim.
No, ma'am.
Okay, so I would definitely recommend that if you have little interest in, you're thinking about, getting know about the tribals, so you do watch these movies.
Okay.
Kantara is definitely based on, even, it gives you the a rough idea about the, tribals, because it was actually, presenting the tribals, right? So you must have seen a few clippings of a man doing the,
Yes,
dressed in
ma'am.
things,
Yes,
and
ma'am.
he was possessed by the deity,
Yes, ma'am.
right? And during the Kantara, so
Yes,
it
ma'am.
it was actually their way of worshipping, right? So we will be talking about this festivals. So you haven't watched the movie, otherwise I have given you, few snippets from the movie, right? So you should
Yes.
watch that movie.
Yes.
After that you'll get to know, right? As we have already told you that, right, there was no construction of god there, right? They don't believe in the god, right? So what they believe in, the local deities, right?
Okay.
So they have
Yes.
this local deities, right? Or
Yes.
on the other hand, they were the pagans. First of all, they were actually the pagans are, you must be heard of, aware of the term pagans, right? So pagans is totally different from before the advent of the Christianity, right? So pagans are the people who actually worship nature, right? They worship hills, they worship forests, they worship fire, they worship water, they worship nature in every sense, right? So they don't believe that there is a god, right? There is a benevolent or there is a malefic creator, right? Who will punish their deeds, who will punish their karmas, and there is a theory of karma, after life, before life, and such things, right? So these tribals are also the pagans, right? They don't believe in any kind of a theory of a karma misdeeds, right? They were simply worshipping the nature, right? Worshipping the nature in any form, right? So they were worshipping their forest, they were worshipping their uh, rivers, they were worshipping their oceans, they were worshipping their trees, right? Even they were worshipping their, the basic necessities, water. And this was the reason they used to, whenever they have the small crop, right, they used to offer that crop to the local deities, right? So first of all, they were pagans when we talk about their religious life and when we talk about their social life, right? So they used to celebrate nature by being in the nature, lurking around the nature, living with the nature, cherishing the nature, and on the other hand, saving the nature. And they even pray to the nature, right? Because they know
Yes,
it
ma'am.
very well that all the calamities, right? Because they were away from the technology and the communication. So their calamities, like in order to, stop the floods, earthquakes, right? So such kind of a things, in order to stop such kind of a calamities and disasters, they worship nature only, right? They don't worship any kind of a structure of a god, right?
Yes,
Not in
yes,
an
ma'am.
idol or not in the ideology as well, right? So they were
Yes, ma'am.
having the construction of a god just on the name of a nature, because they believe that there is a unity of nature and the humans, right? Because they believe that we depend on the nature, right? Because for the every
Yes,
life, like for example food, shelter, and even the clothes, right? So there is a unity between the nature and the humans, and on the other hand, there is a perfect harmony between these two, right? By offering them, by protecting them, by worshipping them, they feel that they are actually, returning back to the nature what they are actually getting from the nature, right? For example, they are getting woods, they are getting fruits, they are getting vegetables, they are getting leaves from the nature. So by worshipping it, by protecting it, they are saying that we are giving it back to the nature,
nature.
right? And even the, could say the big claims of Adivasi movement, that is Jal Zameen Jungle, right? So they were actually talking about. You must have watched the movie RRR.
No, ma'am.
Okay, so you are not into movies, Shishmita, I believe, but I would suggest to you that you must watch few critically acclaimed movies. That it will definitely help you to get a better understanding of how the construction is unfolding. Because nowadays movies are much more reflection of the cultural studies or from the very important texts, right? So this is what we are actually having on the name of. On the other hand, a lot of literature is now transformed into the cinematic texts, right?
Yes,
So they are actually transformed into cinema because people are not into reading, right?
yes,
So they are feeling that by the even the cinematic adaptations, they are able to see and perceive the things, right? So even the whole claim of Adivasi movement, that is Jal Jameen Jungle, right? They really want to protect their jal, they really want to protect their jungle, and they really want to protect their jameen, right? So this was the reason that Adivasis, these tribals, are revolting since independence, right? So
yes,
even there will be few incidents that where they will be termed Maoist, where they will be termed Naxalist, right? And they were very common terms in the West Bengal, right? If they are
yes,
protesting, even so they will be
yes,
called Naxalist, they will be called Maoist, that they are going against the government, they are terrorists, right? So such kind of
yes,
a
ma'am.
terms, the criminalizing, we will talk about it, right? So here we will be talking about the tribals, that they are living close with the jungle. So they were actually having a unity with the nature, and they are sharing the harmony with the nature. And because they believe that nature is the ultimate provider and the rescuer as well, right? So they have this immense love for the surrounding, for the things, and there is no power structure. There is a no power structure, right? So there will be some king, a tribal king, just a kabila. They will be having one head. It was not a king. They don't have the construction of a king. They just have the construction of a head, right? That will
Yes,
be the head of our kabila, and that person will, you could say, protect us. That is the only thing. And when there will be disputes, that is person. So ultimate, like an elderly man in the house, that head will be served as the elderly head. So there was no power construction, right? There's no
yes,
structure of the power construction. And on the other hand, they were very much open and spontaneous about living their life. Right? They really want to enjoy nature. So even their festivals were very much rested in the in the vicinity of the nature. So for example, they used to celebrate, the cropping, the grazing, the plowing, right? So their even festivals were very much like that, unlike our festivals, right? For example, we have few festivals related to every, different religions. So you don't have such kind of a religious festivals even, right? So in every religion we have few festivals, so they are free
Yes.
from such religious festivals, right? And even we have national holidays, they don't have the construction of such, right? So they will have the festivals, right? That also, depends upon the nature, right? For example, the first crop, they are celebrating the first crop, right? On the other hand, they were celebrating the first rain, right? So because so such are their festivals, such are their sports, right? And then come the idea of the, you could say, environment, right? So definitely they were the environmentalists, right? So they were the ultimate, you could say, the first voice that actually talks about the environmental protection, right? Because when we compare about the colonial period, and even when we compare about today's regime, right, whether it is a capitalistic regime or whether it is the state, right, they try to extract the more and more natural resources, convert it into finished products, and they really want to sell it in the market, right, in order to have more and more share and money, right, in the society. So they are the first people that they are just taking only that much which is actually required to, you could say, satisfy the minimum necessities, right? So they were just drawing their lifeline from the nature. They were not stealing, they were not poaching, right? They were not extracting anything more, right? What they actually need, right? So this is all about their, this construction they have. And then came the idea of local deities, right? So we were talking about the local deities as there were no god in the construction. So the
Yes.
local deities, they don't believe in the construction of god, but they believe in the construction of spirits, right?
Yes.
So even spirits are the supernatural phenomena, right? So they
Yes.
believe, so these their local deities, basically their local deities are their cultural heroes. For example, or you could say, the elder spirits, right? So they worship those spirits, those, for example, those cultural heroes who laid down his life for the for the emancipation of the tribals. And on the other hand, they're elderly people who are actually, asking for, as a beacon of light, as a ray of guidance for them, right? So this was the reason. And they believe that these people, these deities, these spirits are actually the spirits who will definitely protect them, right? So they celebrate their festivals. And this was the reason that, for example, we have the concept of, our pitr, right? We
Yes.
have the concept
Yes.
of our Pitra. So the same way, they're local deities, right? So the local deities cannot be totally as their Pitra, but on the other hand, it can be their cultural heroes as well, right? So they cherish few cultural heroes, right? Few
Yes.
cultural heroes. And on the festivals, for example, let me give you the example of Kantara, right? So there they actually showed one kind of a festival. It is a cult of Bhuta Aradhane, right? The basically the movie was based on Bhuta Aradhane, so which was actually a very prominent, a form of a worship of the tribals, right? And the
Okay.
festival, or you could say the basic cult, was the Bhuta Kola, right? So Bhuta, as we already know, that Bhuta is definitely a dead, so it means a dead, right? And on the other hand, Kola means play, so it means the play of a dead man. So during this festival, so it is a 3 days festival when they're, on the day of Bisakhi, when they celebrate the first crops. So they are celebrating this 3 days festival, these tribals, where they feel that on the third day, when they were, when they were all dressed, their body will be possessed by the local deity, right? And whenever there will be conflict, and that deity will guide them, right? If there is a conflict, if there is any kind of a dispute between anybody, if anybody wants to ask something, if anybody wants to respect request something, so they will ask the local deity, and it will get done by the local deity only. They don't believe in the concept of god, really don't believe in the concept of an ultimate god, right? The construction of the god, right? So this is what is all about their religious life, right? So their religious life was much more, you could say, social and culture, right? So you see, they don't have this political connotations with their life, right? Like, or any religious life, right? So basically, what they have on the name of culture, festival and religion, that is what is all about their culture and heritage, right? So they really cherish nature and the people who actually laid down their life for the, you could say, for the emancipation of the tribals. For example, in tribal people, right? So they don't term, they use term Bhagwan Birsa Munda, right? So they term Birsa Munda as Bhagwan. We have already done the construction the same, right? Yesterday we were doing storied house, that how Bayaji had the big pictures of, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar instead of a god in the house, right? So such is the construction of the god, right? So I hope this much is clear. Do you have any question?
No, ma'am, this is clear.
Okay. And when we were talking about them, right? So, what is the difference between them? So, there are so many questions that says, so we all are tribals, right? So, there is this basic question that, if we all are tribals, or a few of us evolved, few of us we went to the, the civilized society, made technological advancement, and started living in the communication ridden society, right? So what was actually the construction, right? And why these people were not taken to the race? Were they left behind? Or they were suffered to left behind, that you stay primitive, you stay uncivilized. We really want to, we really want to build a different view and different, you could say, a world there, right? So basically, it was a theory given by the Max Muller when we were talking about the construction. I really want to, give that theory in the last first lecture. Then we will be talking about the Dalit, but then I thought that it would be, too much for you. Now we would be talking about the four varnas, right? So we have already discussed the point of view of four varnas when we were talking about the Dalits, right? So, but why four varnas were created? Who created the four varnas? It was definitely not the god, right? The god came and claimed that I have created the four varnas, right? So where did the construction of the four varna came from, right? So basically it was the Aryan invasion theory when we talk about, right? So there are, a lot of anthropologists when we talk about the origin, or you could say the existence, the evolution of the human beings, right? So they talk about, this theory. So this is also Muller. Max Muller gave the theory of Aryan invasion theory, right? So they believe that the Aryans, right? So in Aryans, we have the white race, right? The white race consists of, definitely, you could say, Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, right? So these are the Aryans, right? They are the inhabitants of the Iran or the North India, right? So before this Bharatvarsh, there was this Indus Valley civilization, right? I hope you are clear, familiar with these much terms,
Yes, ma'am.
right? So there is this Indus Valley civilization, right? So
Yes.
then came the Aryans, right? So Aryans are, you could say, they're comprising of Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, right? So earlier they make the constructions here only. Earlier they were Aryans, right? They were white in the color, right? And because they come from the Iran and the northern areas, because of the, you could say the weather and the other conditions, and they definitely poses them to be the better race, superior race, right? They came to the India, right? You could say that they came to the Indus Valley civilization, and as they were whites, right? And on the other hand, these tribals and these Dalits, they were said to be the natural inhabitants of the Indus Valley civilization, right? And because they were dark, right? As they were dark because of the, say, the weather and conditions, and other conditions of the Indus Valley civilization, right? So they were the Dravidians, right? So they were the Dravidians, the indigenous, right? Or the Adivasis, as we, already have the construction, right? So because of the color construction, because of the color theory, so it is said to be that because Aryans believe that we are the white race, we are the superior race, they invaded the Dravidians, right? They invaded the Dravidians, they conquered the Dravidians, the same construction of West and the East, right? So here the Aryans are the Occidents, the Western, the Western Orients, Occidents. On the other hand, the Dravidians, right? So these tribals and the mixture of Dalits, right? So these
Yes,
tribal
ma'am.
and Dalits, those who are actually the Orient, right? The real Orient, what we talk about, the Adivasis, right? The primitive
And
people.
this
So they
was
are.
this same was said by B.R. Ambedkar,
Yes, it was same said by B.R. Ambedkar. So I really
but
want to
it
give
was the
you
theory of Max Miller.
Max Muller. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar quoted his theory. On the other hand, there are a lot of theories given by the Aryan invasion theory, right? Just
Okay,
to
okay.
give the facts that it was not the imaginary world of Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, right? So
Okay,
people
okay.
rejected these things, but on the other hand, even in the very popular book *Sapiens*, right? You must have heard
Yes.
of the book *Sapiens*, right? The whole theory
Yes,
was
ma'am.
there even as well, right? So you can even
Yes, ma'am.
read about Aryans and Dravidians and even the Aryan
Okay.
invasion theory,
Yes, ma'am.
right? So these people, so as Aryans were white, and they definitely, even the same construction when we are talking about the Nazis as well, right? Why Hitler wanted to kill every Jew? Because of the race as
Yes,
well,
ma'am.
right? He found himself to be the best, the best and superior race.
Superiors. Yes.
So the race construction was definitely there, right? And this was the reason, right? They converted race into the caste in order to assert their only control, right? So we will talk about it. And then because of the construction of black and white and the Aryans, they conquered these people. And as these people, they are not the warrior class, right? They were not the warriors. We have already discussed about the Dalits, because basically Dalits were the artisans. They were performers, right? They were
Yes.
performers, and they were the simple doing oddly jobs. On the other hand, when we were talking about the tribals, they were also, the Indus Valley civilization, these inhabitants are very much living closer to the nature, right? So they were
Yes,
they
ma'am.
were actually having their minimal life, right? So they were not the warriors, they were not the radicals that they will definitely oppose them. So it was the Aryans who invaded them, right? So and they invaded them and even enslaved them. And on the other hand, then they portrayed, these people as Dravidians, definitely. Then they can, make the construction of the Chaturvarnas, right? The four
Yes,
Varnas. And they divided themselves that I will do this, I will do this, I will do these, and we will definitely slave these people by profiting, by promoting the, you could say, the construction of the caste over there, right? So those
yes,
people who actually lived nearby, and those who conquered very easily, so they become the Shudras, right? And then they have the construction of Ati Shudras, and then these people, these STs, right? They fled
yes,
to the forest somehow, got their things, right? Got their things with them, right? And they fled to the forest in order to, they even, have the voice of resistance. So they become the tribals. They don't come under the construction of the caste. They were somehow, they were hiding in the trees and hiding from the Aryans, and they were hiding in order to carry their nature, in order to, carry forward their culture, their tradition, and their heritage, right? They don't want to get diluted by the Aryans, right? They don't want
yes,
this, the power, the construction, the whole thing of the civilized society, right? So
yes,
this might be the reason that Sentinels are still afraid of, the human contact, right? So definitely there is a generational memory that is going on, that we are definitely very evil people, right? The white people, the clad people, right? The people are very much dangerous, right? So this is how this comes the whole construction of the, you could say, the Aryans and the Dravidians, which actually, mingled into the four caste, four varnas. That is the ultimate caste system, which is very much prevalent even now in India, right? And as they were totally different, right? They were racially different, even they were socially different, and all the literature. When we are talking about the Vedic literature, right? So the Vedic literature was actually, and it was actually the literature, right? There was no religion, right? It was the literature. Even when we talking about
yes,
the texts, right? They were
yes,
all
ma'am.
the mythological texts, right? The mythological texts are there, and mythological texts, even when we're talking about the myth, right? So there we have the more and more, the idea of imagination, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So the Vedic literature, is written by the Aryans. So this was the reason that it was definitely written from the point of view of Aryans only, and
Aryans.
it portrays Aryans as the gods, as Bhagwans, as someone who is superior, bestowed with the duties of teaching, commerce, and the, you could say, protecting. And on the other hand, these people, they were often termed to be the Rakshas, Asuras, the Sayus, they were the Dians, Chodels. So such kind of, you could say, how they are, typified as, you
Yes,
could say, criminals or asuras or demons, right? Because the construction of the god and the demon, right? The binaries were created by these Vedic literature, right? So the
yes,
Vedic literature ultimately become the truth of the life, right? By the society, right? And then this whole the Indus Valley civilization converted into the Bharatvarsh, right? So the Bharatvarsh, from Bharatvarsh, we have the construction of India when colonial rule invaded us, right? I hope this much is clear,
Yes, ma'am.
right? And I hope now the tribals, their history, their culture, we have even discussed a few about their folk
Yes,
tale
ma'am.
as well, right? So I hope this
Yes.
much is clear. So this was the reason I recommend you to even watch the movie Kantara, because there you will see a few traces, right? So there you can see a complete three people, right? Three different people who are actually fighting for the land. So there was this hero, right? Who is actually who is in the end he possessed by the spirit, right? So there
Ma'am,
is the
Kantara
hero.
is not available on any OTT platform.
Kantara is available on Netflix, and even it is available in Hindi. You must watch on Netflix.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, okay.
It is available on Netflix, right?
Okay,
So
okay.
I'm just going to give you that the hero is the ultimate reflection of the tribals. On the other
Okay.
hand, then we have the landlord, right? The man who is actually controlling the village, right? He
Yes,
is
ma'am.
actually the he is actually the you could say the reflection of the uh, Aryans, right? Basically, a Kshatriya prince. When you see the movie, you got to know that how it was a Kshatriya prince, right? Who gave the land, right? So it was actually a Kshatriya prince. So he was definitely the ultimate reflection of the. So there is a complete, you could say, conflict between the Aryans and Dravidians, right? Because the story starts in the backdrop of 1800 something, right? And then there is also one participating agency, that is the forest officer, right? There is a forest officer, that is Murlidhar, right? So the Murlidhar is definitely the reflection of the modern state, the government, right? And the you could say, and the conflict between these three parties when it comes to land, right? The
Yes, ma'am.
landlord believes that that land belongs to me because of the capitalistic needs, right? It belongs to,
Yes,
he
ma'am.
feels that it belongs to my father, it belongs to our ancestors, right? It
Yes, ma'am.
belongs to us. And he actually had a timber factory, right? They were actually portraying the south coast, coastal regions of South Karnataka, and it was very rich with the timber, right? So there was a lot of wood logs that got carried to the factory of that you could say that landlord, right? So it was all about his capitalistic needs, right? He really want to build a big empire, he really want to build a big factory in order to compete with the other people. And on the other hand, Shiva and his people, they believe that it is their ancestral land, it is actually promised by the deity, it was actually the land there where they are living from the since ages. And on the other hand, there is this the construction of the Murlidhar, where he is actually a forest officer. He believes that the land belongs to the government, right? He believes that, and he really wants to make the whole forest area where the tribals are living, and where even the landlord had a factory. He really want to convert that area as a forest reserve, right? Because they were actually looking for the you could say the safeguarding the interest of the forest, right? That nothing can be extracted from the forest on the name of poaching and everything, right? So you could see that there is a clear contrast between three agencies, right? So I hope you will enjoy the movie whenever you watch it, right? So but I will definitely recommend that it will give you a rough idea about the power construction of the land, and it will give you even a peek over the cultural life of the tribals, right? Because they have given the idea of you could say the Bhoot Aradhane, right? So Bhoot Aradhane, but it was a different thing that they have actually highlighted the thing to the cult of Bhoot Aradhane, that how it was got elevated because of the few drama, right? So you know it very well. It is actually a Hindi cinema, and Hindi cinema loves making masala, in the movies, and less they are portraying historical accounts. And on the other hand, even they mingled at a point of the time, right, by portraying at Varaha Rupam, making this thing as it is a totally Hindu construction, right? So definitely they are making people more confused and manipulate rather than a fair. But definitely a person who trying to extract few things from the movie, then definitely you will like it, right? So in same way, we will be talking about the movie now. Sorry, drama, that is the Budan, right? So Budan, it is based on a real life story, right? So Budan, so as we have already talked about the Shabari, so there is a community named Sabar, right? Sabar, या Sabar जिन्हें कहते हैं. So Sabars are usually found in the West Bengal, right? And the whole play, they were actually, there is not a single author, so it was actually produced by the Charas tribe of the, you could say, Ahmedabad, right? So there is not a structure of a play, like for a play of a 5 act. We don't have Shakespearean drama, right? Or we don't have the play like a Dhata Bhagat, like
Yes,
consisting of the acts. Here we have different scenes, right? So basically we have 15 scenes in all, and this drama is actually in the it is actually in the based on a nukkad natak. It is actually a way of nukkad natak, right? Why it is a nukkad natak? Because in order to make people aware with the theme, in order to
yes,
make people empathize, in order to
yes,
portray the you could say the the grim realities in front of them, in very in front of them. Yeah, as we have already talked about the masala point of view of drama, yeah, or a cinema, right? So because when we were doing the cinematic construction, and when we are talking about the dramatic constructions, right? So there are few dramatical or you could say cinematical elements are involved, right? We cannot forget them, right? In order to build up a unity, in order to make the whole thing a coherent performance, right? But on the other hand, Nukkad Natak is very much spontaneous, and Nukkad Natak is actually what helps people to connect them more and more, right? So it is actually in a way of 15 acts. So there just you just have 15 scenes, different 15 scenes, and they are actually enacting in the front of a nukkar natak, right? So basically Budan was actually a story of a person named Budan only, who was actually killed in the police custody, right? I have already asked you about the Jai Bhim, because the story was somewhere familiar, right? When I was studying about the story, right? So then I didn't watch the movie, right, Jai Bhim, but then this movie came, and I was relating with the movie, and I was quoting examples with my friends as well, that how I have read this text a few years ago, and it has the same connotations, right? That how these people, these tribals got killed in the police custody, right? It is also Jebin is also uh, a murder mystery, right? A murder mystery that talks about the murder of tribals, that is very common in the police custody, right? So they were tortured,
yes,
they were killed, right? And the same way, right? Even when you watch Kantara, right, you will see the contrast between the forest officer and the they often have a conflict with the tribal, right? This hero Shiva, right? Because the state, you could say the state, even the modern form of state, right, that consists of government and police, right? So
yes,
they have this obsession of criminalizing these tribes, right? They really want to put blame on them because it is very easy for them, right? The same
yes,
thing we mentioned in the when we were talking about Balbir Madhurya, right? So the same thing here as well, that it was actually based on a true story. There was a person who belonged to the Sabar community, and his name is Budan, and he got killed in the police custody, right? And police want to do a very the cremation in a very jiffy, but on the other hand, with the intervention of Mahashweta Devi, right? So the people, the relatives, and the community people, they went to Mahashweta Devi. It is actually a real story, right? They went to Mahashweta Devi, and it was the Mahashweta Devi. She intervened, and she asked for the postmortem report, right? And when the report came, then on the other hand, police wants to portray as a suicide, which it was not. And when the postmortem report came, that actually that testified the result truth, that it was actually a murder, right? He killed by getting beaten mercilessly because of the assaults, and he didn't commit any kind of a suicide, right? So the whole story was based on a real incident, and the whole story talks about that how it is very easy to to kill, to torture a tribal, because they know it very well that there are no people who will come and ask us or
yes,
question us, right? It is very easy, right? It is very easy even to blame them for everything, even if you have simple kind of a theft. The same story I was talking of the JB, so the same story was there, right? So there was a theft in somebody's house, but that person was very much powerful. That person actually demands an answer from the police. So this was the reason they actually they caught two three people, two three tribals, and they simply put them in the jail, and they said that sir, we have the people, right? We have the robbers, right? And these are the people, these are such kind of a tribes. And on the other hand, we even discussed about how britishers have criminalized them, right? So they were actually the britishers are actually terming them as, like, for example, they are terming Birsa Munda as they are actually the formation of the criminal tribes, right? Because they were very much resistant, right? They showed resistance. They were very much violent. They don't want Britishers to invade the forest. They don't want Britishers to invade the nature. So this is the reason they were often termed as the criminal tribes. And the same tendency was taken up by the modern form of government, so-called independent, so-called government of the independent or democratic country like India, right? So the same structure. So this was the reason when we talk about the modern state, the construction of the modern state. So it is no less than it was actually carrying the legacy of the colonial rule, right? So though we are talking about the decolonization, though we are talking about the post-colonial, literature, but in the post-colonial literature, the reason is we are talking about the colonial, because of the colonial tendencies, the colonial legacy is very much there in all of our practices, right? So what we are doing to the tribals, the same they were doing to the tribals before the independence, right? So it was very easy to blame these people, and their needs are definitely constantly ignored, and they were solely judged on the basis of their tribe, right? Just or they were just so look at it that they were totally taken on the face value, right? So you are from this kind of a community, you will commit the crime and you have to be on the jail. That's it, right? For the same thing that we have even talked about the Dalit narration as well, that you belong to the lower caste, right? You have to do this and you will do this, right? So there is no independence, social justice, or mobility somewhere, right? And so the story began like, so there we have two people, right? So we have two people. There is a couple, right? So we have Budan and Shamli, right? So they are actually a couple. And then we have definitely the inspector, Ashok Roy. And so it was, the scene starts like that. Budan and Shamli, they were actually buying something from the shopkeeper, right? So they were actually at a shop and they were buying something from the shopkeeper. And on the other hand, there came suddenly this inspector and he caught hold of the Budan, right? And he started cursing him that you are a thief, you are a criminal, you committed the crime, you actually murdered somebody, right? And these two people, though those who are they are very ordinary people, they don't have any idea about what they are, what that person is saying, right? On the other hand, the officer, right, he took hold of the Budan and he took him to the jail, right? And he compelled him that there are so many thefts are going on in the locality, and you are the person who is actually responsible for hold the thefts, right? So as Budan was actually a basket maker, right? He was actually making baskets. He has no idea that what the inspector was saying, right? So he was totally shocked, right? He even pleaded that he is simple man, he is an ordinary man, he is simply making baskets, right? He is not somebody who is thief. He said that I'm a person that who is actually making a small money out of a baskets, right? I don't want to earn money by any kind of a theft. But on the other hand, it is a very common thing, as I have told you, to put blame on these people, to put blame on these scheduled tribes, on these tribals, and they find it very enjoyable business as well, right? So there is even a dialogue that where inspector says that it is a kind of a very much enjoyable spot for us, right, to kill these sabers, right? They have this obsession with these people, right, of putting sabers in the jail or killing them, right? And then on the other hand, Shamli was totally clueless, right? What the actual thing was going on, right? Even she pleaded the police officer, the inspector. She keeps on, requesting the police officer that he let her husband, let her husband free, and he doesn't have anything, involved in any kind of an act. They are not involved in the theft. On the other hand, she was totally pleading. She was all the time crying, and she was all the time on the tears. And on the other hand, inspector, he was very much adamant, right? And they beat him, even they gave them electric shocks as well, right? So they beat them every now and then. Whenever he just walks to the the cell of the, you could say, the Budan, he simply starts beating him for no reason. And he even compelled him that you should say yes to the crimes, right? You should say yes, that you are the only one who is actually doing thefts in the locality, right? And it also as we have already talking about the legacy of the colonial rule, right? So such kind of a treatment of the police, right, of the Budan, that actually puts a lot of light on the constant surveillance that that Britishers were obsessed with, right? It was the Britishers, right? Even we talked about Foucault's panopticism as well, right? So how Foucault was actually talking about the panopticism, the the whole idea of the jails, whole idea of cells. Even there was the idea of light as well, right? So when we don't have light, electricity that much, so they used to have a light, a rotating light, right? You must have seen that in the in the movies, right? Or in the in the fictional, you could say, accounts, right? So there was this revolving around, rotating light that goes to the different cells, right? So it was put in the center, and it rotates that, right? The rotating of the the light at the night, it was actually a way of constant surveillance over the prisoners, right? They don't, so that they don't want to they really don't want them to get escape to any point of a time, right? So it was all about the constant surveillance. And it is very clear that how these people, right, the police, the police, and right hand, the police wants to make Budan as a scapegoat, right? They just want to make him scapegoat, and use him as a tool, right, to even assert his authority, and even to even to implement their own prejudices over the poor person, right? And on the other hand, the situation for Budan and Shamli was totally very, very, very much depressing. And then we were talking about the police and the legal system, and right, so from police we moved to the legal system. When the case was passed over to the to the judiciary, even they have a very bad reputation about the, you could say, the Sabar community, right? So he is simply a common man who doesn't even have the capability of having a lawyer, and who will be his lawyer, right? And definitely the lawyers will be off from different good communities, from very well off and privileged classes, right? Why would they fought why would they will fight for a tribal man, right? So the whole construction of the caste, and the whole construction of the power, right? How caste and power are embedded with each other, right? So this was the way. So instead of listening to the pleas of Shamli and Budan, even instead to listening to the the statement of the Budan, that he was keep on going, that I have no say, I'm not in any way involved in such kind of a theft, in any kind of a crime. The legal system, right, the judiciary, they passed orders to shift Budan to a jail, right? So from a local jail, so now he shifted to a Purulia jail, which was actually kind of a confinement. So there was something that he is definitely going to be punished, right? So there was no say. So it was not about that he will be on remand and he will be on something, right? So it will be solely that he is going to embrace the punishment somehow, 2 months or within this 6 months, right? So even in the jail, he met with the assistant superintendent, right? So when the assistant superintendent looked at Budan at the first sight, his whole body was wounded, and he was unable to walk, he was even to unable to walk. He was walking, he was actually limping because of all the assaults, right? He felt pity over the Budan, right? So but on the other hand, when he got to know that Budan belongs to a Sabar community, right? So the community, right, a tribe which is which is termed to be like they are the criminal tribe. They are most they are most hated people, right? But on the other hand, the whole dimension, the whole attitude of police, or you could say the assistant superintendent, changed, right? He started torturing the Budan more and more when he was in the jail. He was already wounded, his whole body was already bruised, but on the other hand, then he put to the work. Assistant superintendent deliberately asked him to go and clean whole of the prison on the village, sorry, whole of the prison. So look at it, right? So the only thing they expect from these caste and tribes, just to do the cleaning thing, right? So look at it, the such kind of dirty mindset they have, the such kind of a narrow mindset they have, that they really don't want to share any kind of, forget about even power, even they really don't want to share any kind of a space, right? They keep on asserting their control by making them aware again and again of their the so-called existent, what they actually put on them, the so-called identity, that you are just liable to become like that, you are just here to do only such kind of activities, right? So this superintendent, he has given the charge, right, the cleaning of the prison, the entire prison, to Bhutan. And just because he was very much wounded, his he was unable to walk, even he was unable to do anything. He was not able to clean the whole prison. And even then, the person will come and he starts beating. And there was no ending of the physical violence. So look at it. There was the relationship is totally, the violence is very much prevalent. We were talking about the physical violence, the physical assaults, and on the other hand, the mental violence, right, the mental exploitation, the mental exhaustion, what Budan was actually feeling, right? An ordinary man, a basket maker who is actually simply living a life with his wife, and he doesn't have much aspirations. He just wants to live a simple life, right? And the kind of trauma, the kind of mental exhaustion that person would be having, right, by without any kind of a crime, that he will be put into jail, continuously beaten, giving electric shocks, and the all the, you could say, laden with the all the claims of the debts. And he was accused more and more and more times. So definitely he was actually suffering from, it was like a tornado, right? He was actually stuck in. And on the other hand, when but the merciless violence goes on and on and on. And there came one day, the last day, when the suppetent, right? He just came to the cell of the Budan, and for the purpose of beating only, right? He really wants to beat Budan again and again. And when he came for the beating, he found that Budan was dead. And he was shocked that time. And then, and even at the same time, he was terrified as well, because he knew that it will cost him and even the inspector in a big trouble, right? He called the police inspector that this is how Budan is dead, and it will cost both of us in the big trouble. So, what would be the solution to end our misery? So they come up with this idea that they will portray that Budan is the one who actually committed suicide, right? So the whole thing, the police custodial. That's on the other hand, in one lecture even I mentioned that how much the custodian, these custodian deaths were there, right? So the police the number is actually endless, right? Thousands and thousands, right? And every year there are thousand deaths that that happened in the police custody. And the reason is definitely obvious, that it is because of the mercilessly beating and the assaults by the police, right? And but on the other hand, they spreaded the news like that. But on the other hand, Shamli was totally, she was totally shocked. She was not able to digest this news, that how come Budan can commit suicide, right? She was very much shocked. She was shocked beyond the word, right? She was not able to believe that whatever these police inspector was saying, and how they are spreading the news, right? So she went to she went to her people, right? And on the other hand, her people, right? Then they were talking about the case of the Budan, that how they were trying, and they were totally, they have no say in the power structure, and they cannot reach to the police, they cannot reach to the legal system, right? They cannot reach to anyone, right? So the only thing is that in the play, then they went to the Mahashweta Devi, right? So they went to Mahashweta Devi, they narrated the whole thing, and then they had come up with the plan, right? In the end, they come up with a plan that uh, so they were saying that police were actually keen on cremating the body of Budan, right? They really want to burn the body of Budan. But on the other hand, they come up with the plan that instead of the cremating the body, we will ask the police to bury the body, right? And they will say that instead of the Budan's body, we will bury the effigy of the Budan, right? So on the other hand, and then the body will be taken for the post-mortem, right? The same way, so instead of the body of the Budan, they bury the body of the they bury the effigy of the Budan. And the body was definitely taken to the hospital, and there the report came. We have already discussed the point. It was a real incident, right? And had it been in fiction, we will able to empathize, we will able to have our your tears in the end, for example, when we come out of the movie,
Yes.
after seeing after seeing any kind of a emotional scene, right? When we come out of, for example, if we saw our very favorite hero die, right?
Yes.
We cry with that person, right? We cry. On the other hand, when we come out of the cinema hall and we got to know that his movie is earning so much, he's actually having his vacation somewhere, and he's actually going somewhere with his wife, with his children, and sometimes with his girlfriend. So there was some solace at in the corners of our heart, right? So there is some solace came to our heart, right? Oh, okay, so all things are going on the track, right? But on the other hand, when we think about that, whatever is played in front of you, right, it actually happened in this reality, right? So that thing was much more beyond the comprehension of your mind, body, and soul, right? You are not able to digest for a moment, right? So the same kind of a whirlpool of emotions you will come to know when you watch Jay, right? Because it is a murder mystery. So the same way, right? So the hair even so uh, so the pathos, so the pathos were very very deeper, right? So instead of retaliation, resistance, so here we feel numbed, right? That how and obviously the report was of the postmortem that it was not at all a suicide, and Budan died because of the constant assaults, and it was definitely a murder, right? Murder in the police custody, and that too at the hands of the inspector and by the assistant superintendent, right? But even we know the future as well, right? So we know it very well that even if even if there will be a case filed against both of them, that most at most and most they will be suspended from the duty for 2 years, or at max 5 years, right? Not more than this they will get any kind of a punishment, right? Because of the the delayed justice. And on the other hand, because of the delayed justice, we have seen in the case of the Nirbhaya, we have seen in the case of the Hathras Kand as well, right? The Hathras, right? Where the Dalit woman was raped, right? The two Dalit women not even was raped, even their bodies were hung on the trees, right? In order to put terror in other people's, right? In order to put in the minds of the hearts of the other people that you should not raise voice against us, because if you raise voice against us, then this will be happens to your daughters or to your mothers, to your kids as well, right? So such kind of a heinous atrocities, crimes are still prevalent in the India, right? So Nirbhaya and Hathras case was, and these two examples are are bleak realities what we have. And then we will be talking about, right? So in the end the whole thing was ended, but in the end the whole play ends with a chorus, right? So it was clear in the end that how it was a murder, right, and not a suicide. And with the help of Mahashweta Devi, they will able to they will have going to have a respectful a respectful end to the life of the Buddha. But on the other hand, the whole play in the end that ends with a chorus, right? It was a chorus. So as I have already told you that it is with Nukkad Natak. So in the Nukkad Natak, right, so in the end the chorus very forcefully, right, he asked that are we not the Indian citizens? Why we are treated as the second class citizens? Why we are treating like that? Why we are why we are actually depriving of any kind of a self respect? To what extent these atrocities will be inflicted on our body, mind, soul, and to what extent, right, we will be we will be gulping down such discrimination, such assaults for how long, right? So the whole play ends on a note of on the a kind of you could say it will lead you to the house of more and more of a meditation, right? It hands on a meditative note, right? That for how long, right? So for how long, and it is and such kind of crimes they are suffering at the hands of their own people, right? As we are saying that we all are same, right? We pledge that we all are same, we all are brothers and sisters of the same nation, an independent democratic country, right? So the play ends with the chorus, and where they have the construction that for how long they will be treated as a second class citizens, and they do have self respect, right? So the whole the play portrays that how not even the custodian violence by the police, but on the other hand the psyche, even the mindset of the the police and the legal system as well, that how these tribes are still termed to be the criminalized tribes, right? They were termed to be the ultimate criminals because there were no people, right? So those who are there to save them, there, as we have already talked about, that there will be no lawyer that who will be fought for a tribal, right? Because what will he get in the end? Nothing, right? So in this way, so this was the reason that it portrays about the legacy of the colonial rule as well, right? So in this way, the whole this play ends on a meditative note that to what extent, right? So this was the reason that SCs and STs are they are enlisted, the following caste and tribes are enlisted in the constitutional structure of India and the democratic country India, where where Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar wanted representation, social justice, not just the economic security to them, right? I hope this much is clear. Shishmita, do you have any question?
Ma'am, Mahashweta Devi is a character in Budan.
Yes, they have they have made the construction, yes, because it was actually it was more or less, you could say, a social realistic play, right? It was a realistic play. So in the real story, Mahashweta Devi intervened, because on the other hand, Mahashweta Devi, Arundhati Roy, right, they are the courageous women who are they who are actually speaking time and again against the against the government, right? How they are treating the others, right? So Mahashweta Devi has done a lot for the tribals emancipation, like the Birsa Munda, right? So he has spoken enough, he has written enough literature, and even she initiated the term subalterns, right? That how they are living in their own land and they are the subalterns, right? So she used the term subalterns, especially for the tribals, right? Anything else?
No, ma'am.
Okay, and then we will be talking about, for example, I was just giving you the example of, the scheduled tribes, and when and these people, right? Then we have the Gonds, the Bhils, right? The Meenas, and we have talked about their historical and societal and cultural share history, and even let me quote you example, right, in order to make you understand that how these constructions are very much there, right? It is not like that we will be just talking about, and we are we have enough room and we have the enough discussion for that, right? It was actually happening still in India, right? It was these practices are still prevalent in India, right? So this is actually the most heartbreaking thing is that, right? So such kind of a practices are not just a part of fiction, or not just a part of myth, right? So these things are actually actually portrays, right, the reality of India, that somewhere down the line a tribal is beaten, somewhere down the line a Dalit is actually humiliated, somewhere down the line a tribal woman is actually suffering from the constant rape and assaults. On the other hand, somewhere down the line, a Dalit woman will be abducted by the somebody, and he will be raped, and then she will be raped, and then she her, even her dead body will be put on the it will be hung from the tree. So such is the reality, right? Of the these margins. This was the reason that we will be talking about writings from the margins, these tribals, the subalterns, right? The marginalized voices, right? Let me give you one more example to make this thing clear. Like, for example, we will be talking about the movie, right, Jebin? And there they have portrayed a tribe, right? Basically, they were the rat catchers, right? So they were the tribal people. So you know it very well that they share a very intimate relationship with the nature, right? So they were not the
Yes, ma'am.
people, right? So they are much and more familiar with the natural resources and the wildlife and everything, right? Even some of the areas, they even they worship wild boars and sometimes the snakes, the cobra, right? So they have a very close connection with the wildlife as well, right? So for them it is not something to be afraid of, or it is not something to be despised of, right? So even they believe that it is also a kind of a, you could say, a participant in the natural process, right? For example, we have the process of that, how one thing will eat the another, and then it will be eaten with the another thing. So so they believe that it is like a whole cycle of this, right? So this tribe, which is actually mentioned in the movie, so they were actually the rat catchers. So during the during the cropping. And so when the crops were about to cut, and even when the the farmers, or you could say the landowning classes, landowning communities, when they were doing the farming, so there will be the rats, right, the wild rats, right. These wild rats, they got into the fields of these people, right. And because they got into the fields of these people, they destroy the crops, right. They make a lot of, they make the deep holes, and they got hidden there, and then they destroy the whole crop. So the definitely the landowning communities, the people, the upper caste people, the privileged people, right, the rich people of the village, they were very much afraid, and they were very much worried about the thing. So this particular tribe which I was talking about, so this particular tribe was actually was actually the rat catchers, right. They catches the rat from the field. And how they catch the rat from the field, they have a big utensils, right. They have the big utensils, and there is a pipe that is attached to that utensil, right. So there the pipe they laid they fix the pipe to the field, right. And on the other hand, there is the thing where they burn the, they burn something in the utensil. For example, they burn the coal in the utensil, they burn the you could say the wood in the utensil, and it will, because of the burning, it will come the smoke, right. And then they will keep on burning. On the other hand, then they will keep on even piping that thing into the field, right, by constantly breathing. And they have to keep on making the smoke, making the smoke's way into the field, right. So it take a lot of physical strength, right. Not even the burning, but on the other hand, there is a pipe where they blow, right. They blow the pipe sorry, they blow the smoke into a particular direction, right. And if they are blowing the smoke, you know it very well, it is a very difficult task, right. On the other hand, the smoke, right, it will directly it will directly go inside the body of that person, and it will cause a lot of kind of a terrible diseases as well. And on the other hand, the person's life might be at the risk, right. So it is definitely a very risky, a dangerous task, right, that these tribals are doing, right. But on the other hand, by the time the smoke will go will go deeper and deeper in the fields, right. And this is how the rats will be start suffocating, and they will come out, right. They will come out from the holes, and this is how they will catch the rats, right. So this is what the this particular tribal people are doing. But on the other hand, you know it very well, right, because of the the education and reservation, the people are now quitting such kind of a businesses. And on the other hand, we are living in the democratic country where we are promising education and social justice, freedom and liberty to all. And we don't want to carry forward these kind of traditional and professional duties, because here everybody wants to become achieve a kind of a status where he can risen up, to be. For example, we have studied the idea of Satish becoming a professor, right. So here we really want to live a civilized society where everybody will have a self-respect and will be having a good job, right, a good a noble job. We really want to have a noble profession. So here even these people, right, so these the people from these tribes, right, so they really want to move out of it. On the other hand, even the people, those who are the the elderly people, they don't want their children to to get into such kind of a profession, right. On the other hand, they really want to get out of this vicious circle of the exploitation, oppression, and putting their lives totally at risk. And by doing such petty activities, like like the rat catching. So this was the reason that right, so they really want their children to go out and have education. But on the other hand, it very well that people are talking about the reservation, we were talking about the caste system, right. So on the other hand, there are this is the grim reality of India, that most of the people that they are not able to get for example, when we are talking about the scheduled tribes, right? Tribes, when we are talking about scheduled tribes, they are lowest of the lowest, right? For example, when we are talking about the Dalit woman, how she is the Dalits of the Dalits. So the same way, right, so the tribals are the ultimate marginalized voices, right. So because they don't have any access to anything, right, so they don't have their own land, they don't have any kind of a ration card, they don't have the basic necessities, they don't have the basic documents most of the tribals, right? Most of the tribals, those who are totally tribals, right? Those who are, actually very, very much backward. For example, their education and economically they were backward. They were not even able to get their caste certificate, right? The scheduled tribe certificate, right? The ST certificate, right? So they are not even able to get the ST certificate in order to get education better, because they don't have any inkling, right? They don't have the legal documents of having a house or having anything at home, right? So this is also one of the grim reality. And second aspect that I would like to highlight, that here when we are talking about this, rat catching tribe. So these people, when they have to, apply for the certificate of ST, right? So you know it very well that India it is all about documentation, right? It is very difficult to get anything, done in India at any level, right? So be it poor people or be it very rich people. So it depends just on that how much you have a say, right? If you that is by bribing, or something by recommendation, right? So what these people has to suffer is, in order to have their certificate, they really want to show that utensils, right? They really want to show that utensils to the to the authority, to assert that we belong to that tribe, right? I don't think that anything could be terrible than this. That on one hand, you really want these people to move out of this profession. You really want these people to come out of this, the kind of activities, the kind of deplorable condition they are in. You really want people to come out of it, and you glorify it on the name of, giving them the ray of hope of reservation. You are giving them the ray of hope of education. But on the other hand, at the same time they will be realized, they will be realized again and again that they belong there. This is what your ultimate existence is. This is what you are, this is from where you come from, this is what you come from, right? So this is the only thing that there you belong, right? So in order to it was actually a thing, right? In order to have the certificate, they really want to show the utensils, that they have a utensil at their home, and this is the reason that they belong to such kind of a tribe. So that is actually the grim reality of India, right? So this is all about, we were talking about the tribal literature, and we were talking about the Dalit narrative, right? So we have talked about it enough. On the other hand, tomorrow is the last day of this module.
Yes, ma'am.
So we will be talking about few of a part of a poetry, and I'll try to cover short story, or any kind of a, short stories, or any kind of a novel or a fiction, whatever is mentioned in your course, right? So, or anything else you want to, give any suggestion. I would like to follow that,
Uh,
Shushmita.
no, ma'am. I like the lecture, and in fact, I like that you try to involve the student also by asking questions.
Oh, okay. Because I really want you to, my aim is to make you understand. It was not just to preach here, because we have already done enough of preaching everywhere, right? So it was just about to interact, and I really hope that this course will help you in the better understanding of these marginalized people. And whenever we come across such kind of a people, we will definitely, go and lend our hand to help them, rather than just putting curses, and rather than just making fun of them and making fun of their existence, and making fun of that how that how easily they got tickets, right? That nowadays people are
Yes, ma'am.
accusing them, right? I really believe in the concept of that we rise by lifting others, right? So we only rise if we lift others, right? So if we really want to put people down, ultimately we will be down with them, right? So that's the only thing that I truly believe, and I really I really wish that this course will definitely help you in the better understanding of the concepts of Dalit, the narratives. And I know it would not be possible to read everything for you, but I suggest you that whatever comes handy, you must watch that. You must read that. You must watch that, right? Either even you could have an audiobook, right, on the YouTube, right? So whatever sources you have. So it is not just about passing the exam as you are the only
Yes,
student, right? So
yes,
so that actually calls for your determination as well. Even that, even that portrays your willingness as well, that you are here to learn, right? So you are not here just to attend the class, right?
yes,
So you are here to learn about it. So I really wish that whenever you come across any kind of a text, be it a short story, be it a drama, don't feel that it will waste my time and I could just do away with
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
summary. So instead of it, just to read the things, right? Because
yes,
this is a very beautiful world, and literature is the ultimate way to connect with life, what I believe,
yes, ma'am.
right? The ultimate mirror of the society is literature. When we talk about the Dalits, and we will talk about the tribals, right? And
Yes,
I truly recommend you that you watch Kantara and you watch Jai Bhim, right? It will definitely give you a more understanding, right? It will give you an edge, right? Over the understanding of the how these people are portrayed, right? On the other hand, when we were talking about the tribals, and now we got to know about the different theories, that how, when we were talking about that, how this land actually belongs to them only, right?
yes,
So we, the people, right? So the people, those who are actually those who are actually thinking that they are actually doing actually doing something, some kind of a service to them, right? By giving them reservation, by providing them education. So it was us, first of all, it was us who actually robbed them, right? We robbed them, we enslaved them, we looted them, like a colonial master did with the India. So we were no better, right? So the same thing happened to them again and again. It was very much prevalent in the history, that how it all depends upon the control. And I hope you are now able to understand more about the caste system, right?
yes, ma'am.
That how it was totally a man's construction,
Yes, ma'am.
right? For
Yes,
example, like the people that, this was the reason that in Manu Samriti, right? They were against the idea of the intercaste marriages, because they really want this, they really want this pure blood, the Aryan blood, right? To be there as intact as it is, right? Because they feel that if they will come in contact, if there will be no distinctions, there will be no binaries, there will be no barriers, then the whole thing will be, dashed, right? So this
yes,
will be the reason that people keep on harping on such things, that, like, for example, in Merchant of Venice, Shylock said that I will eat with I will eat with you, I will walk with you, I will talk with you, but I will not pray with you, right? So the
yes,
same construction we have here in the India, right? So we will walk with them, we will talk with them, even we will offer them food, but even even we go to their home, we celebrate with them, but we don't want our daughters to be there, we don't want their kids to be there at our house. And the very common examples that we can see, right? The very common examples we have in the first lecture, I have talked about it, like how we have the different utensils for our kambalis, right? We treat our kude wala bhiya differently, we treat our drivers differently, even, right? Our
yes,
drivers and the house helps and everybody, every single thing, right? So we have the construction very much prevalent there, and it shows that how evil and how how dirty and narrow mindset we are carrying, right? Even after these, so we are celebrating the 75 years of independence, we are actually celebrating the years of independence, liberation, and education. But the you could say the dirty genes and the dirty germs are there. It's there. It's inside your mind, your body, your soul, very much there, right? It got so much rooted that it would be very difficult to get rid of the prejudices. But on the other hand, it would just be literature, right? The only thing that made you the open minded, that actually made you empathetic with people, that actually ignites compassion and love in your heart, right? And you become the ultimate voice of the humankind, right? So the literature has that humanitarian approach. But the sad thing is that even even the literature, even like we when we study about the Marx, right? So this was the reason that Marx believed that art should be undogmatic, art should be free from any control, right? Because he doesn't want his people, because he know that very well that art is so much beautiful, right? He has
yes,
the idea that we the same construction we have the of the John Keats as well, that how truth is beauty and beauty is truth, right? Because
yes,
the imagination is so much beautiful, right? And because it is beautiful, it will keep on inspiring people, it will keep on enticing people, it will keep on cherishing people, right? So this was the reason that even Karl Marx believed that art is so much beautiful, and art is so much powerful, and art has the capacity to move people. So this was the reason it should be away from the control of the powerful, right? He said that art should be free. right? Any kind of art, whether it is going to be literature, cinema, anything. He said that it should be free from the control of the powerful, because it is beautiful, it is powerful. The powerful will definitely right? Use it as a tool to manipulate the powerless, right? The construction of bourgeois and proletarian. So what we have in, the construction, right? So here even we have the construction the same, right? That how they are suburbs, how they are scheduled tribes. This was the reason they are bourgeois. They were the proletarians. They were the ultimate powerless people. So the construction of haves and have-nots, right? Even we have the story yesterday that in the storied house, that how Bayaji was somebody even who has risen to the status of the haves, right? So, but still he suffers because of the caste dynamics, right? So the haves and have-nots will still be there. And when we were talking about the tribals, then we feel more and more, guilty of ourselves, that how they have such a wonderful construction of the nature, how they have such a wonderful construction of the environment as well, right? Now we are actually, putting so much campaign to stop the other human beings. It is not about some alien has invaded our earth, and aliens are actually the one who are destroying our earth. We are the ones who are actually destroying our earth, right? The climatic change, global warming, everything, right? Even the ozone layer depletion. So everything is happening because of us, because even because of our selfish motives, right? Because of our capitalistic order, the
Yes.
patriarchal capitalistic order, the consumerism, because we are consuming much, right? We can't, why we are, having the campaign say no to plastic, because we can't order, we can just simply order, we can't cook much, right? So this was the reason that so it's very small to big reasons are there, right? So because of this capitalistic order, right? So we are saving nature from our own selves only, right? But on the other hand, these people, they have such a close connection with the nature, right? They are living in the lap of the nature, they are living in the forest, they are living in the, they are actually worshipping the nature. And as I have already told you, right? So even so we can see that the same goes with the Sentinels, right? So even you can, search after the lecture, that the Sentinels, right? The Sentinels island in the north of the Andaman, so there you can see that. So in the end, we got to know, we conclude that how these tribals, right? They are devoid of any kind of refinery in their manners, right? So they don't have refined manners. They are simply, the simple savages, what we call them as people, but they are much more closer to nature, right? And even as a Wordsworth says that this was the reason that even Wordsworth, gave the theory of, the whole theory that he gave in the preface to Lyrical Ballads, that how the rustic people lives in close contact with the nature. And just because they live in the close contact with the nature, they are much more closer to God as well. They were much more closer to spiritualism as well, right? Rather than people who are living in urbanized, mechanized world, right? They are living in the, big skyscrapers, and around surrounded with the factories and industrialization. Because of the mechanization and industrialization, it has robbed the true essence, right? So what we are actually having, right? So nowadays it was definitely going to be a war between the haves and the state, right? State
Yes.
wants to spur the, you could say, the wealth of these haves, right? So the ED raids by, the ED raids on the, on the, bureaucrats, on the leaders, right? So it is a kind of a, clear reflection of that, right? That how nowadays the whole thing is just left between the state, the modern form of state, as we have already discussed, that how modern form of state is no less than a colonial legacy, right? So it is not just talking about the ideal realm, what we were talking about, the Ram Rajya. So it was not at all clear, even near to the construction of an ideal state. Our present government is not at all near to the, ideal form of government. But on the other hand, it was just power dynamics between the modern state and these capitalist people, right? So these capitalists, these bourgeois, these haves. But on the other hand, they have no consideration. Still, the people like, tribals, these Dalits, they have no say, right? They are even beyond their, even beyond their, even consideration. They don't even want to, consider these people, because these people are still, after, so many years of reservation and so many years of education and independence. So the still, if such kind of a stories, as we were talking about Hathras, even we were talking about, Budan, it was a very, very recent story. It was not a story about the 20 years or 30 years or 40 years back, right? So these such kind of incidents, if such kind of incidents still are, cropping up in our, in our society, so you could think about it, right? It was just a one story. So what kind of a population we have, and we have already discussed that how much, the most of the population of India, we have Dalits and we have the tribals, right? So the kind of, tortures they must be having on the daily basis, right? So that is truly, unimaginable for us, right? And on the other hand, how it was just centered on the, haves and have nots. So you can read any text from the point of view of Marxism. You can apply that text. Just for example, we were studying the character of Buddha, right? So you can apply any psychodynamics, that what kind of a, trauma or what kind of a mental exhaustion he would be studying. So try to, you for example, I hope you have completed your literary theory,
Yes, ma'am.
right? So you
Yes,
try
ma'am.
to analyze one text from the point of view of different, literary theories. For example, when we were talking about Dalits, and when we were talking about the tribals, try to evaluate from the point of view of Marxism,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
And we will be talking about the Dalit feminism, right? Try to, to correlate from the point of view of feminist ideas, right? So what kind of a feminism was actually needed for them, right? Because liberal feminism is not going to be the only solution, right? They have to be radical at some point of a time, right? So
Yes,
they try to evaluate. So rather than just quote, giving the, quoting the summary, I would recommend you try to, put such kind of a points, right? Try to give some kind of a reading, a Marxist reading, and try to give such kind of examples, right? And try to
yes,
quote the exact quotes from the text, if you are able to get it. And
yes,
I really recommend that try to read a text, right? If
yes,
you
ma'am.
get time, when your exams are due.
For this for
Yes.
this is course, ma'am, they will happen in December.
Okay. Okay, so you have enough time. So you have
Yes, ma'am.
sufficient time, right?
Yes,
So tomorrow, what you want me to complete, right? As it is the last course, and then we will be having 2 days off, right? Then we will going to have our class on 11th.
yes, ma'am.
I hope the schedule is with you, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And from 11th, we will start the different course, and it was also, an interesting one, right? So there you will read the Tughlaq, there you will read the Samskara, something is a political allegory, and somebody, a Brahminical point of view. So
Yes,
as this is these writings have a one line of writing, though we have the different dimensions, that we have studied the Dalit feminism, right? We have studied Bama Sangati, and then we have, we were talking about tribals, right? But they
yes,
talk about the same ideas, right? They have one line of idea, right? So they were
yes,
talking about the atrocities inflicted on the, on the marginalized voices. The whole, as the paper, itself says, that the writings from the margins, right? But on the other hand, the other course is much more dynamic. You will feel that you will read Samaskara, definitely. We talked about Mahashweta Devi. Even we will talk about the Tughlaq Bai,
yes,
uh, Gurvish Karnat, right? So very much applaudable text we have in the name of Indian cinema. Have you read anything in your PG course, in your MA?
no, ma'am. That's why that's why I joined this course. I
Okay,
did my masters from a local college. I belong to a very small town,
okay,
uh, and it didn't cover a lot of topics. When I came across this course, when I was searching for something to do uh, from IGNU, I came across this course. So I thought that I would join it. Then I'll get knowledge of Dalit literature, folk literature. I have no idea about those at that time, but that's why I joined it.
okay. No, that's really a very good decision, I would say. And see, Sushmita, I would like to, end on this note, that literature is actually like an ocean, right? So
Yes,
you
ma'am.
are saying that you are actually from a small town, and you don't have much, you could say you don't have, much more exposure to literature because of,
Yes,
because of
ma'am.
few constraints, right? But on the other hand, I would like to, advise you that literature is actually like an ocean, right? The more time you dive in the ocean, you feel that it is much more deeper,
Yes, ma'am.
right? The more time you read, the more time you try to connect, the more time to have the interpretations, you feel that it is much more deeper, and every time you come out, you will come out some kind of understanding. right? You will
Yes.
come out of, it was not just you just, you just swim on the surface level, right? Whenever you jump, whenever
Yes.
you just want to dive, right? So it will, you will come out with the depth, right? You will tell people that this is how much I have dived, right? So
Yes.
literature is like that. And there is no you could say time frame, and there is no syllabus to relish literature, or to
Yes.
it is simply, you could say, the best way, to have life lessons learned, right? So I would just
Yes.
simply suggest you that all the best for your future, right? We will be ending this module tomorrow, and then we'll be starting the next on 11th, right? So till then, read these the things that I have mentioned today about the tribals, and do watch the movies, and do read the text, whatever is mentioned in your course.
Yes.
You will definitely enjoy, and you will able to earn, learn, and understand more, and hope one day you will, become the voice of these marginalized people. I really hope that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we'll meet tomorrow. That's all for
Okay.
today, Sushmita.
Thank you,
Okay.
ma'am. Thank
uh, Ji sir, that's all for today.
Okay, ma'am. Take it.
Ji, thank you sir.
Okay, thank you.